You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengels.
Welcome to the IU Report with Grant Shouse. Today, joining Grant and myself is Mike Hutsell, a big IU fan. An IU football fan going way back to the Bill Mallory days, the Anthony Thompson days. We were just discussing it before we started the podcast. And today starting next week, guys, we're going to have actual games to talk about, but this is the last week without a game to preview. So what I'd like to do is just kind of go game by game and go best case and worst case scenario. What's going to happen with the Hoosiers and Grant? There's no way they're not going 3-0, right? We can just start right there.
My thing is, when I think about best case and worst case scenario for every game, best case scenario is you win, and the worst case scenario is you lose every game.
Oh, Grant, you're being way too literal now.
I know.
Because Indiana State is not beating the Hoosiers.
No, they're not, and neither is Old Dominion. But I'm going to say this. Those guys at Old Dominion are as fired up to run out of the tunnel onto the field as Indiana is.
That's right.
They also want to win the game. And they're a program that has competed with other Division I, like high-caliber Power 4 opponents and given these teams good games. They gave South Carolina a really good game. I think it was last year or 2 years ago. They gave them a really good game, and South Carolina only won by 4. And Indiana's better than South Carolina, but that's not to say that Old Dominion is not going to come out fired up and ready to go. You can't overlook your opponent. You certainly can't overlook Old Dominion, and I can't imagine a scenario where this Indiana team loses one of their first 3 games.
If they did lose one, it would be Old Dominion. The next 2 teams are even worse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Indiana State was the 1-11 last year for Purdue. Let's be realistic. I mean, Kennesaw, we got this weird relationship going with them because of where the president came from. It seemed like they're popping up on the schedule over and over again. But I want to correct you on one thing. There is a better case scenario than just 3-0 here. After the Kennesaw game, 3-0, and Signetti maybe pees on a picture of Paul Feinbaum on the 50-yard line or something. Lane Kiffin has a stroke because he watches Fernando Mendoza throw for 7 touchdowns, and they win 63-0. And he's sitting at home crying and looking at pictures weirdly of his daughter in a USC volleyball uniform. So there's better case scenarios that.
I never thought that we'd be discussing a better case scenario than 3-0, but you're absolutely right, Mike.
I'm always going to hear to put my positive spin on things. Any chance I get to make Paul Feinbaum, who oddly enough is the before photo and a hair restoration ad and the after photo and an Ozempic ad, come to life.
I would have never thought to say anything like that to anyone. That's creative thinking there. I love it.
Oh,
I think that Indiana, with hopefully starting off the year 3-0, we're going to talk about it the week of the Kennesaw State game, but it is interesting to point out now. I do like the reference Mike made to the relationship Indiana does have with Kennesaw State. They played them in basketball a few times. They're playing them this year. They're going to play them, I believe, in 2027 at home as well. Either 2027 or 2028, they're going to play them.
See, the problem is before Dolson and Witten got there, Indiana would schedule 3 games that they had no business playing in the preseason and be 1-2 going into.
It's a good point.
And then they would be beat up already. And by then, your confidence is shot. And you're right. That's a great point, Mike. Like, I saw a tweet today of someone pointing out the fact that Indiana had a really good team in 2001, but they started off the year playing a couple teams. They played NC State in a non-conference game. Oddly enough, the quarterbacks coach at NC State at the time was Curt Signetti, who was on the opposite side, like kind of some foreshadowing there. But that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. They had a good team that year, and they played 3 big non-conference games and lost. and I think went 1-2 or 0-3.
Yeah, they were 1-2, and they actually had won 4 games in the Big Ten that year, and they didn't make a bowl. That was what Cameron's last year cost him his job.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
Going back to even the Tom Allen era, the last year Tom Allen was there, they played Louisville in Lucas Oil. They know they've got 9 Big Ten games on the schedule. Well, they've already got a loss on the schedule for the Louisville game, so they're 2-1. And at that point, you have to win 4 Big Ten games. That was the days of the Big Ten East, where Indiana had 4 losses scheduled for them every year.
Yeah,
so
they did.
They had to go 4-5. They had to go 4-1 over the other 5 Big Ten games every year if they lost an out-of-conference game to make a bowl. That's how you go from 1993 without winning a bowl game, is you don't know how to schedule your pre-conference game, and you get put, just because of a weird dividing line between East and West, Purdue gets to go out to the West Division and play Kennesaw State in a conference game, essentially. Right. And Indiana gets the gauntlet of the Big Ten East.
Thankfully, they went away with those divisions after a long time. It was just such a killer to see them get beat up time and time again, knowing they had to play Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State every year. And Michigan State was a good team. And then you sprinkle in the fact that at that point you probably lost at least 2 of those 3 teams with Michigan and Penn State and Ohio State. Indiana hasn't beaten Ohio State since 1987. And then at that time, you're playing Northwestern or Wisconsin. It's one of the old West schools. And it's like, why are we even going to try? I mean, the season's over at this point. And that definitely kills your ball club. I think this game is all between the ears, fellas. And this Indiana team has it together between the ears. We all 3 have seen plenty of teams, if not almost every single team, that didn't have it together between their ears. It was always a killer for the program. It just sucked, man. Like, we knew they weren't going to beat those teams. In 2021, I think the most heartbreaking loss I've ever witnessed as an Indiana football fan was when they were playing Cincinnati at home. They had a 14-0 lead against Cincinnati in the early stages of the second quarter. They were cruising. It was a sold-out crowd. The place was rocking. They were in the early stages of the game where they had a 2-touchdown lead. Micah McFadden gets thrown out of the game for the worst targeting call I have ever seen in 21 years of watching football. They went on to lose the game, and the program never recovered after that with Tom Allen. That was the beginning of the end. I will never forget the domino effect afterwards. And it's just the way they schedule the non-conference kills the program. That's why those people can talk the talk that they want to talk. But we all know that any team in the country that has some structure in their program is beating Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State if they had to play them as well.
Bizarrely enough, they'll still play 9 Power 4 conference games. Even with those 3 dogs on the schedule, they'll still play 9 Power 4 conference games.
That brings us to week 4, which, of course, is a big one against number 12, Illinois. And since the dawn of the IU football program, Illinois has been a must-win, especially at home, every year, whether it's to determine which teams are going to get to a bowl game or, more than often than not, which team isn't going to finish last in the Big Ten. But now it seems to be that they're fighting at the top, and I can't buy Illinois, guys.
It's tough to say at this point without having seen Illinois play this year, I think.
But it's Illinois.
But they have big expectations coming into this year.
But it's Illinois.
But Greg, last year it was Indiana. Everybody went.
I get it.
But it's Indiana.
Illinois went 9-3 last year and won their bowl game. They beat an SEC team in their bowl game. they were up and down last year. It took them overtime to beat Purdue. It was the worst team in the country, regardless of FBS or CS. And I think that Illinois is good. Let's not beat around the bush. They're good. And that's going to be the biggest game in the country that day. And that's going to be I could see it being a 3:30 CBS game, with Nessler and Danielson on the call and College game day in town. I think it's going to be it quite literally, outside of Florida and Miami that day, it's the number one game in the country.
Except for that Illinois is going to lose at Duke on September 6th. So
I hope you're right. I hope that can kind of deflate them a little bit. I think both teams are going to come in 3-0 for that game. And I think it's going to be a good game. I do think Indiana's going to be favored. The game's at home. It's already sold out. I think Indiana starts the year off 4-0, but Illinois is not a team to sleep on, and they're a team that's going to give them a run for their money.
Best case here, both teams 3-0 coming in, just like Grant said. This is a game day game. Pat McAfee standing on the desk, screaming about how great the state of Indiana is, doing another promo and commercial for the football program and the university as a whole. They go out. It's somehow the NBC Saturday night game. It's under the lights. The place is rocking. The towels are flying, and Cignetti goes out and puts a Nebraska on them. I mean, just an absolute mollywop. Brett Biolenema is just crying, looking like Shamu on the sideline, guzzling what he thought was Gatorade, but it's actually a big jug of bourbon on the sideline of the game. Anytime Bert Bielema cries, I'm for it. So that's your best case scenario for the Illinois game right there.
That is absolutely the best case scenario right there. There is a scenario better than 4-0, Mike. I just didn't know it existed, but thank you for that. That was amazing.
Worst case, they lose. Bielema puts 84 on them like he did at Wisconsin that one time. Cignetti has to resign, and Bill Lynch is the interim coach after the game.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about that now. So
you want best case, worst case, Greg? I've been thinking about this all day. I'm gonna give it to you.
I think best case is that they're 4-0 after 4 games, and the worst case is that they're 4-0 and just don't look that good.
There is a little bit too much hype, I think, going into this year about Illinois. And like you said, it would not stun me if Duke beat them. But I kind of don't want Duke to beat them. Because
I hear that.
I've already got tickets to that game. I'm already planning on being in Bloomington that day. So I want the best atmosphere you can possibly walk into, because I was at the Nebraska game last year. It was cool. It was the big noon game. I want it to be that times 3. And if both teams are undefeated, if Illinois top 10, Indiana top 15, I think that's what you're looking at. And I think you're going to have your game day crew there and everything.
I was there, Mike, for Nebraska and Washington last year, and it was by far 2 of the most beautiful days I've ever sat in for football, and just 2 of the most rambunctious crowds I've ever been a part of. And what's so great about that is last year, from week to week, you got to see the crowd grow and grow and grow. And by the Nebraska game, that place was, sold out. It was a sea of red. Same for Washington and for the rest of the year. That was really cool, because that was at the first game of the year when the verdict was not out on Indiana on what kind of team they were yet. So people were showing up. There was still a little bit of a crowd there to start the game, but then you came out after halftime, everybody was gone, and half the stadium was empty, and you're getting made fun of by the Purdue fans. And I literally ended friendships with people because of last year. No joke. I had friends this time last year that I stopped being friends with because of their thoughts on Indiana football. I mean, I take this pretty.
That's serious.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you're a fan, man, because I mean it was tough to defend going into last year, because coming out of Tom Allen, I knew Cignetti. I was at the Maryland basketball game where he just came in and just talked mad shit, and it was awesome. I was like, okay, maybe this guy's something because he's not afraid. This is the first guy that's ever come into Indiana football and just said, I don't care if who Ohio State is. I don't care. It was crazy. Everybody knew it was crazy, but you know what? It's the first person that just didn't come in and say, look, I know it's Indiana football, man, but we're trying to get something going, and we're trying to get. He's like, no, we're going to be something. Get on now, because all these other teams are going to suck, and we're going to be the best. And when I was there, I was like, something might be happening here. I would have never predicted 11-1 playing in the college football playoff. I love that I can look at a Louisville fan and then, you're afraid to play us. I was like, yeah, but, you're afraid to play in the college football playoff, apparently, because you've never been to one.
What people don't understand is Indiana could have went 7-5 last year and made a bowl game, and we'd still be talking about it the way we are today.
6-6 beat Akron or somebody in the Little Caesars Bowl, and Indiana fans would have been loving life last year.
Absolutely.
That's right. Hey, guys, I was talking with Eric and Ryan Robinson on the college football report, and they told me no way that first game against Old Dominion is sold out. Your thoughts?
Right now, it's not sold out.
But by game day,
I don't know that it's going to be completely sold out, but I think that place is going to be full.
I don't think you're being very optimistic if you think that game is going to sell out.
I thought for sure it would after last year.
Here's the one thing that I don't think Indiana does a great job of, and that's creating a premium price for premium games. This game should not be like, I wanted to take my son. I was like, you know what? Let's go. And I jump online and I'm like, how much could it really cost to just buy tickets to go to the Old Dominion game? It's like $150 if I take him to the game. To buy them from the ticket office at IU. I can go on StubHub or SeatGeek or something and get, $27 tickets, but those are all in the secondary market, so you're not really helping sell the game out that way. This should be buy a ticket at Costco and get a, Costco gift card game or something. I mean, you still have to have some sort of promo because, yes, it would be great if they were playing Louisville in this opener. I think that game would definitely be a sellout.
Yep.
We're not looking in the past. This is Indiana football. We're looking nothing but forward.
That's right. And
what I don't like, what we're not talking about quite yet, is the Friday night game. I mean, it's at 6:30 on a Friday night, the same night that Bloomington North and Bloomington South are playing each other, and the same night Terre Haute North and Terre Haute South are playing each other. And Indiana and Indiana State are getting together. That is the most complete crap scheduling move I've ever seen by a university. And I'm calling Indiana out here.
No Friday night football, college football.
That's ridiculous. It's harder for people to get to the game. You can't have any of your recruits at the game now because they're playing on Friday. So that's just a complete bull crap thing by the team. It's bull crap by the university. And quite frankly, the TV markets really don't give a crap. So they're going to let it happen. I shouldn't have to sit here and set my phone up in a press box wherever I'll be that night to watch the game. I want to be able to be at the game. I got season tickets. That's a game I can't go to. I'm not against it being a night game because I love night games. Night games at Indiana, I've been to 2 of them, are just so unbelievable. The atmosphere on campus is really good.
What's wrong with Thursday?
It's on Friday.
The NFL.
It's better than stepping on the toe of every high school football coach. Don't get me started. Sorry. That's a tangent. Let's move on. We're headed to Iowa, guys.
Iowa's situation, what I've been seeing with their quarterback, is that they're not quite confident in him yet. He's an FCS transfer. He was the number 1 quarterback in FCS. This is actually the grown men's league. This is not the kiddies now. This is the FBS, not the FCS, where you guys actually, are playing a step up from, D2, D3. So your glorified D2 school is playing in D. We'll see how he's able to translate. And by then, with it being week 5, he may have it figured out. He may not. They may have a whole different quarterback. I have no idea. I don't even know what I'm doing tomorrow. But it's it'll be interesting for them to go into Kinnick and play. it seems like Indiana's always crapped the bed there. Like in 2021, when they let Iowa take the opening kickoff to the house, I knew the season was over after that, and we were all excited about 2020 for no reason. That was a tough one. That 2021 year took years off my life because of how sad. That is actually one of the worst teams in my life.
It might be the worst team in my adult life, and I'm old. I mean,
well,
that was DiNardo-esque that season.
Yeah, and the team in 2011 was really bad too.
That was Kevin Wilson's first year, right? Yeah, that might have been the worst one.
Kevin Wilson, oh man, forgot about him.
How can you forget him? One of the best parody Twitter accounts of all time is fake Kevin Wilson. I'm holding the bucket today with no hand. Kevin Wilson.
We had a kid from Jeffersonville as the starting quarterback, and just let me tell you, he was not great with the media.
Oh, I loved Ed. I'm still Facebook friends with Ed, believe it or not.
And Kevin Wilson, his actual Twitter account is still amazing. You know, he's still tweeting out POTSD when Indiana's getting ready to play Purdue, which for the people that don't know is piss on the effing Boilermakers. So I love it.
Can we head back to Iowa because I've got my best case scenario here. Look, Grant hit the nail on the head. Kinnick is a house of horrors. Just to get a win up there is the best case scenario, but the best case scenario, which is what I'm looking for at all times, and Greg knows how I feel about this because I've talked about it before. I want those kids in the hospital to put a sign up that says, please stop punting. Like, while you're waving at us, we're going to hold a sign up that's like, please stop punting. We actually want to see something fun. We've been watching punt for our entire stay here at the hospital. This is terrible.
That's right.
Please at least put a cardboard cutout of Caitlin Clark in the end zone so we can see somebody who's capable of scoring.
What's the best case scenario at Oregon, Grant?
They win and it helps their college football playoff resume. And I really think they're going to come out of Iowa 5-0, but it's going to be tough to go out there to Eugene. The good thing about going into that week is that they'll have a week off prior. They have a bye week after the Iowa game, and then they come back 2 weeks later against Oregon. They're in the toughest stretch of their schedule at that point. The Big Ten that schedule's tough. I mean, I really don't give a shit what people think. That schedule's tough this year.
Of course it is, but that doesn't mean that the pre-conference is excusable.
It's excusable because they still play 9 power conference games.
All right, if you guys are happy with it, I guess I can't say anything else.
I do want to make this mention before I forget. You know who the last team to go out to Oregon who was a Big Ten team and beat them? You know who it was?
The Indiana Hoosiers.
The Indiana Hoosiers. And history could be rewritten.
In the aforementioned Gary DiNardo era.
Unreal, man.
I was so great. I was so excited about that game. And we're talking about stupid scheduling. Indiana went to Eugene in week 2 for a non-conference game. Again, why? This is why we could play Kennesaw State now, because we were doing stupid shit like this back in 2002 or whatever it was. I was so pumped up after that game. Bought a ticket that day to go to Lexington. I drove down. Looked like the Unabomber, wore a black hooded sweatshirt with some sunglasses. Me and my friends were sitting in the end zone with Flask, making fun of Kentucky fans. And then they go out and they lose to a team that had been shut out the week before. I think it was 51-20 to Shane Boyd and the Fighting Wildcats. I feel like we say this a lot. It was one of the worst moments as an Indiana football fan. To go out and beat Oregon and then come back, Matt LaVecchio, a Notre Dame transfer at quarterback. We were thinking we're the shit. We're going to go to the Gasparilla Bowl or something that year because we were just on one, and we got beat by 50 by Kentucky. So anyway.
Yeah. This is the life of an IU football fan until recently, so it makes you appreciate Cignetti even more because it's legit. I had my doubts last year as a Purdue fan that this was legit, and then I watched the Nebraska and Washington games and then the Michigan State game, and I was like, this guy is real. This thing is real.
I could write a book on my horrors as an Indiana football fan.
Imagine what Mike could do.
You can't even do a top 10 list because once you think you've got 10, you're, oh, wait, I forgot about Jeremy Pruitt may try an onside kick here in the Gator Bowl. Wait, in no scenario is an onside kick a possibility. So we're going to line all our guys 53 yards off the kickoff. And Tennessee, oh, my God, they just onside kicked. What? I was here. I was in Jacksonville. I was like, what in the hell? How could you not think that was okay? Anyway, let's go back to my best case for Oregon. They go to Oregon. They somehow sneak out a win, and Adidas buys Nike and puts Nike out of business. Could you imagine? It'd be amazing. Oh, it'd be unreal, man.
Oh, man. Nike is just annoying, too.
I still not crying. I'm fine with it.
Everybody is fine with that.
He can wipe his tears with $100 bills. He's still nice.
I think they'll be 5-1.
I'm at 5-1 here as well.
I know.
You asked for best case scenario, and I'm giving you the best case scenario. I already told you the worst case scenario, Greg, is Purdue. They're Purdue. That's the worst case scenario.
I know. And I middle finger emoji'd you.
You did. And I was fine with it because Purdue was the worst team in FBS last year.
After the long trip to Iowa and Oregon, where they have to teach their players how to get on a plane, 2 more games at home against Michigan State and UCLA, and those 2 should probably be wins.
You would think, absolutely, especially after the way both of those games went last year. I do expect both those teams will be coming in with second-year coaches, so I think you will see improvements. Aiden Childs will be a sophomore for Michigan State quarterback. He looked like he had a lot of potential last year.
Mike, I watched that game last year, and even when IU was down 10-0, it was so obvious that IU was 3.5 levels above where Michigan State was as a program.
Michigan State's always it's a tricky team because they're usually either fairly decent or they're laugh out loud bad. I do know Jonathan Smith, the coach that they landed from Oregon State, he was like the hot candidate the year before. It wasn't Signetti. When they got him, people were like, wow, Michigan State really went out and made a big hire to replace Mel Tucker. So people think highly of the coaching staff. People think highly of Aiden Childs. So that's homecoming. I think it's a win for IU. Grant, feel free to disagree with me if you want to. You might know a little bit more about the Spartans than me. UCLA, the fun thing there is their OC is Tino Sinceri, who had the most majestic head of hair on the sideline every week in Bloomington last year as the quarterback coach at IU. So him coming back to face off with Signetti, he'll know a little bit more about IU than most coaches because he was literally on the sideline there with Signetti and that staff for years. I'm not a big Deshaun Foster guy. I do expect a win there.
I expect, those games are set up for Indiana to win. They're they're going to be playing in a position where they're at home both weeks. At that point, you're hopefully 6-0, but I think you're 5-1, maybe 4-2 at best. And at that point, that place is going to be rocking. There's going to be a good crowd, homecoming, no matter when Indiana was, when they were bad or not. There was always a crowd for those games. I think it's going to be a good weekend. It's one of those that hopefully is setting up to be one of those sunny, crisp October days down there in Bloomington for both of those days. And those are the 2 games I'm looking forward to going to the most, just because of they're on the same weekends as when Nebraska and Washington were last year. We saw the electricity in that place last year. Honestly, I think what can make the game is the weather as well. We saw the weather those games. It's setting up to be a good stretch there for Indiana after coming off your toughest games so far with Oregon, and then you're setting up at home against 2 conference opponents that are kind of lower to the pack Big Ten teams that you can win and increase your chances of making a bowl game. I'm good with Indiana not ever winning a national championship if it means one of two things in the football program. One, they beat Ohio State, and two, they just win a freaking bowl game for the first time in my life. That's a good stretch right there for Indiana to at least win a bowl game. Unfortunately, they don't play Ohio State, or maybe fortunately, we have no idea yet. But they don't play Ohio State until next year. So we'll just have to see how it all works out for them. Best case scenario, it's 60 degrees. It's sunny. There's a little bit of a crisp in the air because it's fall in Bloomington, which is one of the most beautiful cities in the country that time of year. And Indiana at that point is 7-1 after UCLA.
If UCLA beats them, I just want to remind people that you could rearrange the letters and Tino Sinceri just spells tons of urine.
So at least you have that, right?
We'll go back to that if UCLA wins that game.
Nice. Okay. Good to know, Mike.
Yeah, that's the type of insight I'm here for.
Then at Maryland, which I think is a tougher game than Illinois at home, but I'm probably wrong. I assume you expect a win even on the road at Maryland.
I think they'll beat Maryland. Indiana, when they've been bad, has played well at Maryland for some reason, and they won at Maryland in 2020. In 2022, they played a tough game against them and almost beat them. But at that point, you had to take moral victories. That was a little bit of a moral victory in the Tom Allen era, that they played well. They ran a kickoff back for a touchdown with Jalen Lucas. People remember him. That dude had legs on him like a jackrabbit, man. He could run all over the field. He was the best kick returner in the country. He's the one guy remaining over from the Tom Allen era for when he left that I wish Indiana would have gotten back the next year because he really would have helped. That's besides the point. I think they beat Maryland, and then that's when you set up for Penn State the next week. And I know you're about to ask us about that.
It seems like it's always a tricky game. I don't know how, but it's a trap game. I expect Tagovailoa to somehow still be their quarterback. 15 years after he enrolled in college. I think that guy's on the lease at the stadium at this point. So.
Then November 8th at Penn State. I think Penn State is very overrated. I'm just going to say that. But I can't see IU going in there and winning.
Well, they've never done it, so you can't see it because you've never seen it, first and foremost. James Franklin is great at beating everyone except for Michigan and Ohio State. Let's face it, that guy is an absolute monster as long as he doesn't have to play one of those two programs. I don't believe in Penn State being the best team in the country. I truly don't. Penn State, even though Indiana's never won there, that's not a place where they've gone and gotten blown out historically. Yeah. Even 2 years ago, Tom Allen, they had a chance to be leading.
To win the game.
Yeah, they had a chance to win the game, and Walt Bell went and did Walt Bell things and called QB draw in the red zone, and they ended up kicking, and Penn State then immediately went down the field and made Indiana cry. But they've been close to winning there several times. Walt Fillier getting his head completely scrambled off in the top in their good season that I think ended up in the Gator Bowl. They had a chance to win there. It's never really been a house of horrors. Saquon Barkley did kind of light them up there one year, but that's Saquon Barkley, and I mean, come on, he's a machine. But they're not going to – I legitimately don't see that as a win on the schedule. But of all the road teams that Indiana could draw that on that elite tier of Big Ten teams, Penn State is a favorable draw for them historically.
Hey, I'll say this. There is a house off of Kirkwood Avenue in Bloomington, which people who are unfamiliar, is the main strip in Bloomington. There's a house on the block next to it that whoever owns it, I don't know. I assume it's college kids or whatever. They always will hang signs outside their house that, when Coach Knight died, they hung a sign out that said, "Rip Coach Knight." They've been notorious for, doing those kind of things. That house and that sign, which is literally the sign, is like a big sheet. Like, think about a big sheet and they take spray paint and they spray paint what they want written on there. That house is responsible for the funniest thing I have ever seen Indiana University athletics in 21 years of watching it. And it was in 2020 when Indiana beat Penn State at home, where the sign read, "Sandusky touched my Penix." That was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And I laughed and laughed and laughed at that. It's not funny, but I laughed and laughed and laughed at that. And that is one of the most memorable things I'll take away from Indiana playing Penn State. The point is the fact that I really hope that, this year Indiana can surpass that. I think if Indiana was playing Penn State at home this year, I think flip it with Illinois, where if they had Penn State at home and Illinois on the road, I think Indiana could still go into Illinois and win. And I think if they had Penn State at home, they could beat Penn State at home. But the fact it's at Beaver Stadium, it's arguably the toughest place to play in the entire country. I don't see a scenario in which Indiana will go in there and win. I think it will be similar to the Ohio State game of last year, even if Indiana sneaks a game out at Oregon, where if they go in there undefeated, everybody has eyes on that game against two probably top five. Well, maybe not, because Penn State will have already lost to Ohio State. But you'll have two ranked teams in there, with Gus Johnson telling us it's Big Noon Saturday with his quarterback Joel Klatt. I don't see a scenario in which Indiana can go in there and win. With that being said, though, I hope that they can. I think worst case scenario, Indiana just craps the bed there. But I'll take them competing. I'll take them competing and losing games than how they lost at Ohio State and Notre Dame last year. Like, I'm good with them losing, but don't lose the way you did to those teams. That's what I think about it. But it'll be tough to win at Penn State. I don't see how Indiana is going to be able to do it. But don't rule them out going into that game because, like Mike said, it's never been a real house of horrors. But they've competed hard there. They've always played well there. Even with not winning, they've always given those Penn State teams a run for their money.
Your story about the sign, Grant, prompted in my head. Something I'd kind of buried. My most distasteful Halloween costume of all time was a Penn State football coach. I had the blue T-shirt, a whistle, my Nittany Lions hat, and I was wearing a towel around everywhere. Yeah, I did that for Halloween one year. People were looking at me and then they'd shake their head and be like, "That ain't right, man."
It's not right, but it's funny. The last home game of three of the last four games are on the road, all against really good opponents. And the Wisconsin Badgers visit on November 15th, and they get 2 weeks before their last huge game of the year. That's one that scares me if you're an IU fan.
Well, Paul Feinbaum today said that Wisconsin is evident of Alabama playing a tough non-conference game. And Heather Dennett smiled and said everything right along with it. So Wisconsin is clearly an elite opponent if Alabama's scheduling them in the non-conference. Luke Fickell, this is a make-or-break year for him at Wisconsin. I don't think people expected things to be as difficult as they have been for him. So my best case is Luke Fickell comes in and gets ahead 14-0, and his middle linebacker trips and knocks down Fernando Mendoza and gets called for targeting, and then Indiana comes back and beats him kind of the way that they did when Luke Fickell was at Cincinnati. So I'm a bitch when it comes to my long-term memory. So I want this to be just a painful way for Luke Fickell to lose.
That's the thing. Wisconsin does play Alabama this year. He's right. And so with that being said, they actually announced on that show today, because Wisconsin plays Alabama and Indiana did not schedule Alabama when Kevin Wilson was still the coach 10 years ago. In that case, because of that, Wisconsin will automatically start up 7-0. I didn't know if you guys had heard that today. My thing is, they're winning that game. It won't be close. Wisconsin's not very good. According to everybody else, Indiana's not very good either. So if Wisconsin's not very good, then Indiana really shouldn't have a whale of a time. I think they'll just something. Feinbaum or whatever his name is asked today. Well, Wisconsin plays Alabama. Who does Indiana play? Well, Indiana plays Wisconsin. I mean, are you that stupid? Indiana wins that game, and I think they win the last game against Purdue too. People are always bitching at the fact that Indiana plays a really bad schedule, and that may be true just due to the fact that the rival up north, Greg, that team over there is going to be better this next year. I hope they are better. I think Barry-O, that beat Barry Odom, not Barack Obama. I think Barry-O actually will have them going in the right direction. But Indiana's Indiana, and Indiana has better athletes. Indiana has better coaches. Indiana has better support. And they're going to go in there on Black Friday, not Good Friday, Black Friday. And I don't see any other scenario than them winning that game. So maybe we're getting too level-headed now, but I really like the way Indiana finishes that schedule with 2 games. I think they'll win. They're capable of winning, and only time will tell. They haven't played it down yet this season. So my answer to that question may be changed, and if people want to bookmark this and keep receipts, that's fine. But just due to the fact that Indiana will be so much more battle-tested than Wisconsin. I mean, Kennesaw State, dude, not Kennesaw State. Old Dominion ain't one to sleep on. And I know they play Alabama, but Indiana plays Old Dominion. And in my opinion, Old Dominion's just as good as Alabama because Indiana's playing. So
it's a little unfair that Indiana's game against a literal high school program is in the Big Ten finale is a Friday night game. But, Grant said it's Black Friday, not Good Friday. Anytime you beat Purdue, it's going to be a Good Friday. But, treating them like a high school team and putting the game on Friday night was a little off color for the Big Ten. I thought that's a little mean. Purdue was going to bring Ryan Walters back. Let's face it. He was going to get another year until Fignetti 66-0. Then now Barry-O's running his mouth. Let's go 69-0. Let's make it a real nice win. That's your best case scenario. 69-0 over Purdue at Ross-Ade in front of 17 sad Boiler fans. You're 2-10. I mean, go for it.
They're going 4-8 this year, just so you know.
Set that bar high, man.
It's pretty high compared to last year. Okay, guys. So I see the best case scenario as I'm just going to say it. 10-2. I think Oregon and Penn State are likely losses. I think they're probably going to win the others. Worst case scenario, I think they also lose either the Maryland or Wisconsin game, and they also lose at Iowa. So I think worst case scenario is 8-4.
Would be my worst case. I think Illinois, Iowa, Penn State, Oregon. So there's 4. And then you lose one of Michigan State, Wisconsin, Maryland. Somewhere you trip up along. If you go 3 straight with Iowa, Oregon, with Illinois, Iowa, Oregon, you lose 3 in a row there. Like Grant said, it's between the ears. You walked into the season with huge expectations, and you're 3-3 coming out of Oregon. You have a potential to trip up 2 more times after that. I think what you said, 10-2, that gets you back in the playoffs to me. If it's only Oregon and Penn State are your losses.
I don't know about playoffs, but I think they're in the conversation again. I'm not sure if they're in it, but they're definitely in the conversation. I think best case scenario is I'm talking best case scenario. They go 11-1 or 10-2, 11-1 is best case scenario. They're going to lose in the regular season at some point. And worst case scenario is 6-6, 5-7, not 5. Well, I guess 5-7, but between 5-7, 6-6, and 7-5, I think is worst case scenario. But I'll take 8-4. I'll take 9-3. I'll just take a bowl game against a solid team and a win. That's all I care about. Guys, I'm just ready for August 30th.
Look, it's not trying to find 6 wins just to make a bowl game in Detroit.
That's right.
I will take this. I will take this every preseason for the rest of my life as an IU football fan. I'm not trying to break down. Are we going to be able to beat Rutgers and Maryland and go 2-1 in the non-con, and then maybe Washington or maybe Michigan State? I don't know. Purdue's going to be the swing game. We're not there. We're not doing that. This is a win going into the year already for me.
Mike Grant, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Man, that was fun. Thank you so much to Grant and Mike. Please tune in every week for the IU report, and we will have later this week, as Grant mentioned, an IU Old Dominion preview, and then we will react to the game after the Hoosiers beat Old Dominion on Saturday. Please do us a huge favor and share this podcast with an IU fan in your life and help spread the word. The Central Indiana Sports Report is here talking about what Central Indiana sports fans are talking about every single day. Thanks again.
The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.